Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Humphreys. This is the super gearing. It's been a little while since I've played it, and it's a fun destroyer. It's a weird one though, even though it doesn't seem like it really gains anything over gearing. I find this ship just more comfortable to play than the gearing is, and I think that comes down to a few things. One being the shell velocity is much higher, so that gives us a little bit easier time farming things at range, hitting destroyers, that kind of thing. It's very nice to have, as well as this extra HP pool. This is a very tanky DD now. You have a lot of HP, and we still have to play rather passive at the start. That's kind of why I wanted to show you the beginning of this game. We're going to start off a little slow here, but maneuvering our ship around, trying to avoid some of these radars, trying to position myself to get some good shots on these DDs without having to deal with those enemy radar cruisers shooting at me. And that burst fire is pretty powerful, man. That was 12k into that gearing. That's insane. This burst fire gives us 50% extra damage on our guns here, as well as giving us a 3 salvo burst. Now, that does limit you because you have like a 30-second reload afterwards, which is kind of brutal, so we didn't quite manage to finish off that enemy gearing. But that burst fire is so useful in a lot of situations where enemy destroyers are going to disappear in their smoke, they're getting out of range. Anytime you're maybe traveling behind an island, that kind of thing, where you're not going to have salvos on target anymore, you can just spam that burst fire right at the end to give yourself a bunch of extra damage. It's really, really valuable. But you have to time it correctly because there is a pretty massive punish to this funny button. There's not really going to help your DPM just by spamming this button. It's very situational, but I like that. I think that's good design. It's strong, but not something you can just easily use all the time, and it gives you just a free power boost. It's nice. That's the other thing about the Humphreys. Maybe that makes it not the best super ship in the world, but I love the design of this ship being that it's a slight power bump over the tier 10, not a maybe 2-tier jump like we've seen on ships like Annapolis and Condi, for example. Well, those ones are getting some nerfs here. I guess that already went through. Condi got a pretty massive HP nerf, so they are looking at balancing them a little bit better. But Humphreys also just has gearing Torps. It has gearing DPM. We get a little more gun range, though, which is nice. But really, it is just the little bit of extra gun range, the HP pool, and the shell velocity here. And yet, I really am enjoying playing this ship. I had a good time with it. Our torpedoes here are great for zoning out battleships, and sometimes getting some lucky hits onto some destroyers. Here's a great example of getting into a DD engagement. Pretty close, pretty aggressive to the enemy ships here, so we got to be a little bit careful. But I'm okay with doing this a little more in the Humphreys compared to gearing because of our extra HP pool. Now, this Grozavoy is going to go dark in his smoke, so I decide to burst him just before he goes dark, getting us some extra damage in. Unfortunately, I'm not quite able to finish him off there, and now you can kind of see the downside. That's such a long reload. If I didn't have that super long reload, I probably would have just continued blind firing him and maybe killed him, actually. Although he would have had more HP, because our burst fire does actually give us that extra damage buff to our shells. So maybe it's fine. But you do have to be a little careful when you use that burst fire. Now, reversing in smoke here, dodging the torpedoes. Anytime you get into a DD engagement like this and you both smoke up, just assume the other guy's going to torp you. I think that Grozavoy assumed that as well. That's why he left his smoke. Also, there's a radar close by. Smart play by him to leave the smoke there just in time, so he only catches the very edge of that radar. But typically, DDs get into that gunfight, they both smoke up, and then they both torp each other. So you have to be really, really aware of that. Our extra shell velocity here helping us a lot. Very easy to land salvos on these battleships here. We do catch the cap just barely, and I was playing a little bit aggressive there because we, again, dealt with those radars on our flank. Oftentimes I'm just looking to spot them, get off angles to torp them, that kind of thing early game. That's where I play a little more passive. Mid game, that's where I want to start to use my HP pool and my guns a little bit more. But it's actually the Des Moines in our home A cap there. Or actually, that's the B cap, sorry. In our home B cap there, yet he's radaring us. So you gotta be a little careful on the Two Brothers map. That's one of the reasons I like this map. Sometimes it can kind of devolve into a not so fun experience, but that middle channel is very unique and I do enjoy it. Although almost caught us off guard there. Nice damage into the price end here. Finally getting our first fire. The fire chance on these ships is not really all that amazing. Unfortunately, we do have to deal with a 5% fire chance, which is kind of abysmal when you consider things like Sherman and Daring. Sherman's got like a 9% fire chance. Daring gets a 8% fire chance. So a little rough to be an American DD at times, at least one of the more standard tech tree ones, where the guns are just not going to be quite as powerful. That's where Daring is a little bit stronger. And you get a heal on those other ones, so very vanilla line here when it comes to the American destroyers. But they do get a nice amount of torpedo power. I think that's the key here, is that initially these American DDs were the gunboats of the game. They were the most powerful gunboats in the game. This is a long time ago, of course. I'm a bit of a old head when it comes to this game. Played it since the open beta, so it's a long time ago that Gearing was the most powerful gunboat DD. It no longer is, but it still has some of the better torpedoes at this tier. They're fast and they reload rather quickly, but they have really good range and damage, right? The range especially. It allows you to use them rather comfortably outside of radars, so you're not completely zoned out by some of these 12-kilometer radars in the early game. It's really, really nice to have that. And of course, we also do find with those torpedoes that they're not spotted from the moon, right? That's kind of the problem with the Shimakaze 20-kilometer torps. They got nerfed so that they're just spotted from so far away. Everyone dodges them. That's not the case with the Humphreys and the Gearing torpedoes. That's pretty nice. Up over 100k now. The guns do a good job of farming. They really do. This extra shell velocity is very nice. If you've been playing Gearing and you're a little frustrated with that shell velocity, people playing a little farther back, Humphreys can help a little bit, although it is no Sherman when it comes to farming. It doesn't have the sap, of course, but also the Sherman just seems to retain its shell velocity at range better. Even though they have the same initial shell velocity, it's that shell retention or shell drag that hurts the Humphreys a little more than the Sherman. Sherman also just tends to be the gunboat powerhouse, right? So we don't have as good concealment on Sherman compared to Humphreys, which is a nice thing. Torps are nice and powerful here as well. So Humphreys has more of that hybrid role compared to a Sherman, which is just more of a straight gunboat. But I wouldn't want to get into a fight with a Sherman as a Humphreys, that's for sure. Not a fair fight, at least. Now we're going to play a little more aggressive again. That extra HP pool allowing us to push up a little bit more, play a little more aggressive, and get away with it a little bit easier. Although I am making a bit of a mistake here. This is my first time playing Humphreys in a while, so I'm not exactly playing it perfectly here. I overcommit. I shouldn't be this close to a Wisconsin who's got not only some pretty decent guns, but his funny button allows him to reload not only his consumables, but his main guns quicker. I assumed we'd just kill him rather quickly here, but he's living long enough to get quite a few salvos into us, many more than I was expecting. So I actually use my burst fire here just to make sure he dies. That extra damage output from that burst fire helps us kill him, I think, before he reloads. Just barely living. The enemy Grozavoy is going to get a shot into us. 800 HP. So, the extra HP over Gearing helping us here. But maybe it's helping us because I made a bad play, playing too aggressive, rather than the ship just allowing us to play more sound destroyer play and play that better. Certainly it helps, though, in most games. And there we go. Get ourselves another kill, second kill there with the torpedoes. That extra range, man, compared to a lot of the gunboats at these higher tiers. I brought up Daring already, but that one only has 10-kilometer torp range. The Torps are just worse on that ship, and that is a valuable asset to something like the Humphreys, the Gearing, even if the guns are a little bit worse. Torping here, though, this is going to be interesting. We want to torp the edge of his smoke, kind of where he's been firing from, and outside of it. This guy's already shown us he's willing to leave his smoke early, so that's what I wanted to do here, and we managed to clip him with two. Rather lucky, but there is some foresight in that. There's some skill involved in leading some of those Torps, but certainly some luck that he just ran into them for us. So that's going to do it for this game. 172 in the Humphreys. Not an insane damage match, but a lot of battle impact in this one. A lot of spotting. And most importantly, that actually got me my last mission for the, I guess it's the 5th mission chain? The second last mission chain for the Wisconsin, that 2.5k base XP. So very nice to finish that up. And that was a lot of damage without a lot of fire damage. Only 9,000 damage from fires. So I think in a lot of games, you're going to get a little better fire RNG than that. So the fires will add up even more damage. So this one being mostly raw alpha damage from the guns and a bit from those torpedoes too, is a good sign for this ship. I really do like it. It seems like this ship and a few of the other ones there are some good super ships. I mean, Clausewitz for sure is one of them, where it doesn't seem like much of an upgrade on paper compared to the tier 10. But there's enough there that allows you to play it more like the ships used to be played in the meta. And this one allows Humphreys to play more of that hybrid role with more emphasis on the guns than the gearing feels like it can these days, which is nice. It's really nice. Clausewitz, of course, bringing back that old Hindenburg tanky style of a cruiser. So that's kind of the thing I'd like to see more of out of these super ships, and maybe some of the outliers be nerfed down a little bit. And they are taking a look at it. Credit to Wargaming there. So 28,000 HP, that's quite a bit extra. As for the build here, though, I am going with a mostly hybrid build focused on guns. You could run a Torp build more so, but then why are you playing Humphreys as much? You should probably play gearing, get more favorable matchmaker perhaps. But maybe the extra HP and the burst allows you to play a Torp build and still have really good bursty gun power when you want to have it. I suppose that's one way to look at it. So the upgrades more focused on guns. Here we're taking some gun upgrades as well as some torpedo upgrades, as I want to use both. That said, you could run a Fearless Brawler and maybe even decide to take some range mod. I don't know, because the shell velocity seems to fall off at range specifically. It's the shell drag that we have to deal with, where Sherman has much better characteristics when it comes to shell drag. So that's where taking some of the range upgrades on Sherman makes more sense. I haven't really tried that on Humphreys, but I haven't really felt like I needed it because our concealment is so good, decent to pretty strong maneuverability as well. You know, it's not much to write home about, but the AA is better than the gearing, although that's not exactly saying much these days considering how carriers are. But that's going to do it for the Humphreys. I had a good time with this one, so had to feature this ship yet again, as it's pretty solid. Also, we do retain this little bit of 21mm plating. It's not much. I should probably point it out, though, because it does mean some destroyer guns are going to shatter on that. Not our own, of course, but there are some, I believe, that will shatter. Yeah, Holland, for example, 120mm guns, they will shatter. So that is a nice feature against certain destroyers. It's not going to help you too much, but every once in a while, that 21mm of armor will give you a little bit of extra tankiness. Although it's really not something I would rely on. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.